Dear friend, please pause for a breath. Listen to me as a gentle bell tolls the silence between two breaths, where all questions originate and where all answers converge. When a child opens its eyes to the world, its cry is the first song of its destiny. It is a signal. Humans come into the world with a desire, the desire to escape from lack, the desire to be whole, to be at peace. All our lives, we wander in search of happiness, trying to hold on to moments of joy, but the moments fly away, and we suffer. Why? Because we look in the wrong places. We travel the world hoping to find the pearl of peace in the scenery, in people, in possessions, in beautiful memories. But that pearl cannot be bought or sold, cannot be placed outside the body. It never leaves us. Today I say to you with the sincerity of one who has seen, this is the day you can end suffering. Understand this with your heart and mind. Liberation is not a gift from the future. Liberation is the realization right here, right now, that your being is unhurt, unneeded, unborn, and undying. You are the nameless light behind every emotion, every thought, every feeling. When that light is present, suffering has no place to live. The reality and illusion of samsara. Observe. Every moment of your short life appears and disappears, like waves on the surface of the ocean. You cry when you lose, laugh when you are happy, but whether it is laughter or crying, it is a passing phenomenon. Samsara, birth, aging, sickness, death, is not a bondage imposed on you by some mysterious power. Samsara is rather a way of the mind when it is deluded. When consciousness identifies itself with the body, its name, its personal history, its desires and fears, it gets caught up in the chain of actions and consequences, and the world becomes a vicious circle. Samsara can be said to be the result of two factors, ignorance, avidya, and clinging, tanha. Ignorance is not seeing one's true nature. Clinging is clinging to what is impermanent. The two combine to create karma, to create the cycle of birth and death. But listen carefully, illusion has a subtle structure. When you are awake, all visible things are present. When you are asleep, the world withdraws. Clearly, phenomena depend on consciousness to appear. So what is the basis for all phenomena? It is consciousness, not the fragmented ideas, but the knowing presence within you, which we call Atman. Try an inner experiment. When you are hurt, ask, who is hurting? And go deeply into that question. Not by speculating, but by observing, where is the one who says I? When you trace to the very end who says I, you will often find a void, or you will encounter a transparent essence without boundaries, a stillness that is witnessing all the waves. There, suffering has no place, samsara loses all meaning. Don't misunderstand, this realization doesn't deny the world, it just changes the perspective. The world still operates, you will still experience rain and sunshine, love and loss, but you are no longer controlled by the world. You are a witness, not a prisoner. From that witness, all actions arise naturally, untainted by greed, hatred, and delusion. And when actions are no longer rooted in attachment, karma is closed, the cycle of birth and death loses its pull. Once you see clearly the illusory nature of the little self, two things happen simultaneously. The attachment dissolves, because there is no one left to cling to. The self is revealed, and with that revelation, samsara dissolves. The root of suffering, ego and ignorance. You often ask, why do I suffer? Some people blame fate, circumstances, external events. Some people think suffering is due to past karma, some invisible force that is controlling. But I tell you, suffering does not come from the world, nor does it come from destiny. Suffering comes from a forgetfulness. You have forgotten yourself. Observe, you believe that you are this body, but the body is constantly changing every day, from infancy to old age. You believe that you are your name, your past, your memories, your wounds, and your achievements. Your true self is not bound by these changing events. What makes you suffer is the ego. The ego is like a clever imposter. It wears many masks. I am this body, I am this emotion, I am the thinker, I am the victim. All these roles, the ego takes on and assimilates, and then gives itself dominion. But stop and ask directly, who is it that is saying I? When you turn back and look at the very one who says I, you will see that it is just a shadow, a passing thought. It has no real roots. When the ego withdraws, what remains? Only the pure self, Atman, remains eternal, immortal, indestructible. Suffering belongs to the ego. The ego is wounded, the ego is afraid, the ego clings. But you, the real self, cannot be harmed. The important thing is, do you have the courage to look straight at the ego, recognize its deception, and return to the true self? Once you do, you will see, suffering never really belonged to you. The real self and the false self. My friend, in every experience of life, there are always two layers of I that coexist. But most of humanity is confused, giving power to the false and forgetting the real. The false self, ego, is the one who borrows the name, the fragile mask. It claims, I am the one who is suffering, I am the one who is happy, I am the one who is searching. But remember, all of those things change, they have a beginning and an end. It is born from memory, from false identification with the body, from habitual thinking. It is not sustainable, because it is just an illusion. The true self, is the opposite. It does not come from anywhere and does not go anywhere. It is not born, it does not die. It is not a concept that you can grasp with words. It simply exists, clear, still, and radiant like the sun that never sets. When you truly turn inward and realize your true self, you will find a strange but liberating truth. You have never truly suffered. You have never truly been born or died. You have never truly lacked or lost. You are always the eternal self, untouched by the shadows of time or the turmoil of life. Recognizing this truth is the beginning of absolute freedom. Practice ending suffering right now. Liberation is not in some distant future, nor is it a reward for some vague afterlife. It is not something to wait for. Freedom is right here in this moment, in every breath, in every moment of your silence. So how do you end suffering right now? Return to the very source of all mental movement. When a thought arises, stop and ask, who is having this thought? When a fear arises, ask, who is afraid? When desire burns in your heart, ask, who is longing? The question is like an arrow turning back, returning to the bow from which it was shot. You do not run after the thought, do not get caught up in fear, do not dissolve in desire, but return to the very source. And at that very root, you will discover a surprising truth. There is no one there. There is only absolute silence, a boundless space, where you feel complete freedom and an endless, unconditional happiness. Living in the world but no longer suffering. You may wonder, if I realize the self, do I need to give up everything, leave my family, give up my responsibilities, live like a hermit in the mountains? I answer bluntly, not necessarily. Enlightenment does not impose a command to renounce the world. It does not force you to be indifferent to life in order to be at peace. More realistically, when you truly realize your true self, you can live in the world with a completely different state of mind, living without being bound, acting without being controlled by greed, hatred, and delusion. Imagine you are standing on a cliff, looking out at the ocean. Waves still crash on the shore, birds still fly, rain still falls, but you stand there, calm, not swept away by any waves. In life, you still cook, care for your loved ones, do your daily chores, love, quarrel, heal, but all these activities arise from another center, not from a small, anxious ego, but from the silent witness. When you are a witness, you still smile, but the smile is no longer a clinging. It does not need to be held. It does not need to be witnessed. You still cry, but the tears do not make you a prisoner. They are in natural flow, flowing through the silent heart. You love, but love is not binding, not possessive. It is an unconditional gift. Living in the world without suffering is a noble art of living. You work hard, you participate in social life, but every action no longer comes from lack. You act as an instrument of reality, an action that is pure, without the imprint of greed or fear. Concrete practices for living like this. Being mindful, while working, occasionally ask yourself, who is doing this? Not to reject the work, but to remind yourself that the action is not being forced by your small self. Action without attachment. Fulfill your responsibilities with a spirit of dedication, but let go of the results. When you work with mindfulness, the results will neither overexcite you nor extinguish you. Love without possessiveness. Give without expecting anything in return. When love is unattached, it becomes a source of healing for both you and others. Witnessing emotions. When you are angry, when you are afraid, let the emotions appear like clouds in the sky and turn back to witness. Then the clouds pass, the sky is still clear. Living fully without suffering is not an escape, it is a sublimation in everyday life. Ancient wisdom, Gita, and direct experience. In the treasury of eternal wisdom, there is a scripture that I hold dear, Gita. It is not just a teaching, but a direct echo from the Absolute Self itself. It contains the immortal sentence: the entire universe is just the Self. There is nothing but the Self. Knowing this, you are beyond all attachments. But I want to remind you, do not just read these words with your mind. Do not turn them into blind faith. Use your own life as a mirror to reflect that truth. Look deeply. The world you see, the earth, the sky, people, joy, sadness, all appear only when your consciousness is present. In deep sleep, when there are no thoughts, no feelings, the world disappears. When you wake up, the world immediately reappears. So, does the world exist independently? No. It depends on your consciousness to manifest. And that consciousness is not a fragile state, but the Self itself, the unchanging ground, the pure existence, where everything comes and goes. When you experience this directly, you will understand that the world has no self-nature. All phenomena are just reflections in the light of the Self. And you, your true Self, are never bound to any realm. The end of samsara, the meaning of liberation. Listen to each word as if you were listening to a series of bells ringing. Today could be the end of the cycle of samsara you carry. When you truly turn inward, when the question "Who am I?" is pursued to the end and answered not by ideas but by direct insight, then at that moment of realization, samsara ends. Not because the body disappears, but because the tiny point of self is no longer the one experiencing suffering. The realizer knows. You have never been born, because the self has no beginning. You have never died, because the self is beyond the law of birth and death of phenomena. You are the self, immortal, still, intact like the cool water at the bottom of a well. That is moksha, liberation. Moksha is not a state of superficial renunciation, it is a radical realization, where all distinctions dissolve, all fears fall away, and you stand in the nameless light. The significance of that day is greater than words can describe. Inner freedom, you are no longer subject to praise or blame, inside or outside, winning or losing. You are in a state of absolute security. Unconditional happiness. Happiness is now not the result of external gratification but a byproduct of the realization of reality. Action without desire. You act not for personal gain, not out of fear, but as a natural expression of love and wisdom. An enlightened person can continue to live for many years, working, caring, and passing through physical death with a peaceful smile. This is not an idealistic scenario, this is the lived experience of those who have touched the self.